Hey YouTube, this is Steve from Average Joe's Fantasy Football, and we've got another mock draft video to help you guys out with your drafts coming up. We are talking 12-team, full PPR. Now this is a simple one quarterback, no tight end premium league to help you guys out. We are drafting at the 4th spot. If you guys haven't already, check out our other mock draft videos we got going on. And of course, make sure you guys are subscribed and like the channel. We've got some great content coming up for this fantasy season. All right, so as you can see here, I'm in the 4th spot of a 12-team league. This is full PPR, so that will obviously play some factor. Again, one quarterback. Again, you shouldn't be going a quarterback in the first round. Now, if we're talking super flex or even 2-quarterback league, that would be a different story. And I do have a mock draft video for a 2-QB league out there, so make sure you guys check that out. Let's see how this thing goes and plays for this mock draft. Now, when you do a mock draft, and I'm sure you guys have done plenty of them, the computer does some weird stuff. Sometimes you see some weird plays. Now here, I actually don't mind what the computer has done. Lamb, McCaffrey, Hill, those are pretty common. Now in the 4th spot here, you got players like Jefferson, Chase, Bijan, Amon-Ra. Now right now, I'd probably say the safest floor is Amon-Ra and then maybe Chase after that. But I'm actually going to go and grab the hero running back format. That's typically how I like to draft if possible. So I'm actually going to grab a running back here. I'm going to grab Bijan Robinson in the 4th spot. Now Bijan obviously is in an offense that we're unsure what's going to happen with Atlanta, right? They've got a new quarterback. They obviously have a new offensive scheme, new head coach. There's a lot of factors in this. So Bijan can either be an absolute stud who has the skill set to do it, or maybe he kills me in the first round. First round picks, second round picks, third round picks are very important. So you hope to hit those because that will drastically make your championship run a lot easier. And of course, waivers are always probably the biggest thing for you. Now you see Nakua is probably the one that I've seen the most changes since, I would say in a month or so as far as his ADP. You saw a lot of running backs going pretty common in the second round. Again, Barkley going a little bit earlier than I had seen in most, but I don't hate where he's fallen there. So now I'm looking at my options here. Again, running back's always a good option. If I can, I'm going to grab Achane in the 3rd round. I'm actually going to grab a receiver here in the 1st round. I'm not crazy about Chris Olave, but I am going to grab Chris Olave in his hopeful potential. Now, he hasn't been obviously a top-tier receiver, but again, in an offense that it's got, Shaheed as his second option against him, nothing great in the tight end world. Like, Kamara's obviously going to be someone who's going to get plenty of targets, I guess. Olave is in an option where he's going to probably force-fed 130 to 150 targets. So Olave is going to have options for that. So I don't hate the pick. Me personally, again, I'm not completely sold on Olave. In the 4th spot, unless you get a top receiver here, which is, again, a great option to do and get a running back in the 2nd, again, you're going to be stuck with a player like Olave. Even Nico is a good option. Now, Achane did not fall to me, which I was hoping he could. So in that case, I'm going to actually grab Pacheco here. Again, Pacheco is a top potential 10 running back in fantasy. I do expect a little bit less passes his way just because I do think the Kansas City Chiefs did increase their passing offense. Worthy and obviously Hollywood Brown when he comes back healthy. You still got Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce. And so I do think Pacheco's value is going to diminish some because he's not going to get as many receiving options. But I think Pacheco is still a top 10 back just because the options of goal line, red zone work. I don't think he's going to be sharing a lot with the backup running backs. I do think there's some consideration, but again, he's a true RB1 where there's so few out there. Now you see some quarterbacks going. You got obviously the tight ends like Kelce, Laporta, McBride, Andrews. Not too surprising. I'm going to try to grab my tight end a little bit later because again, I'm not going to grab super early. The amount of points that a tight end puts up, unless it's tight end premium, sometimes does not equal to the players you're going to be able to draft in these 4th, 5th, or even 6th round. So you got to consider that. Even though these guys are studs, it's a little bit harder to put up the same amount of points. Now, looking at the options here, I've got Michael Pittman, Neighbors, Kamara. I'm actually going to end up grabbing Pittman, even though I do have some concern with Anthony Richardson. But I think Pittman is, again, a top receiver. He's in the wide receiver 2, maybe wide receiver 1 area. I think with his options of maybe some targets a little bit more his way, I think can help. But I think Pittman is still a viable option at the receiver spot. So looking at what I've got, I got my 2 wide receivers, my 2 running backs. Looking at a tight end here is an option, Kittle, Kincaid. But again, I'd rather try to grab other positions because I still think I could get like Evan Ingram or maybe even Freiermuth, who I still have some high hope for this upcoming season, even though the quarterback situation is a mess. So I'd rather grab a running back or a wide receiver here. Now, running back options, Kenneth Walker, who I actually like a lot. You got Tank Dell, Zay Flowers, George Pickens, who I think is going to have, again, possibility. I'm actually going to end up grabbing Amari Cooper here. Kenneth Walker was a second option I could have gone, but Amari Cooper here, again, a top receiver who's getting treated as like a wide receiver 3 for whatever reason. Maybe it's just the concerns of Deshaun Watson, because obviously he's still dealing with the injury. He has not really played the preseason because of them just kind of really keeping an eye on his rehab and how he's doing. So I get and understand why Cooper is a little bit of a receiver that's just kind of fallen. But again, I still think he's a top 20 receiver being treated as a wide receiver 3. Now, I didn't get Evan Ingram, who I would have considered grabbing in this round just because I think he is a top tight end. He has been overlooked completely. He's always being drafted really as like tight end 9, tight end 10, but realistically, he's a top 5, I think, in my book. I think because the amount of targets he gets, even with some of the changes in that Jacksonville offense, you know, with obviously Brian Thomas and Gabe Davis and things like that, I still think Evan Ingram is Trevor Lawrence's favorite target. I mean, you can see it in the preseason. So I would have loved to have gotten him. Now, he's not there, so I'm actually going to end up grabbing Najee Harris. I think Najee Harris has an opportunity to have some success early on. Jalen Warren's out. That offensive line does struggle quite a bit. So I do have some concerns with that. The Steelers have some work to do across the big guys. But I think Najee is still someone who has a lot to prove, right? He didn't get an extension. He is somewhat inefficient. He does show that he has passing ability. As far as receiving, he was great his freshman or his rookie year. So again, Najee is definitely somebody I would consider grabbing. And again, being my 3rd running back, I don't feel bad about it at all. Now, I've got to fill out the rest. Now, as far as quarterback play, I could obviously grab a quarterback. You still got players like Jordan Love here. Dak Prescott was possibly available. Joe Burrow starting to go. Anthony Richardson, you know, again, rushing ability. But I'm actually not going to go that route. I'm going to end up grabbing Kyler Murray because I think Kyler Murray is going to be having, I think, a potential really top 5 season if his rushing ability does get to where it is and he does stay healthy. He is being treated completely outside of that, which is fine with me because he's been falling in a lot of drafts that I've seen, even in my own personal drafts, and I'm okay with that. Because again, if Murray is healthy, sky's the limit. Top 5, definitely. So I don't really feel bad about that. Now, tight ends, obviously, saw a couple more. Bowers, Njoku. Now the tight end is going to be a little bit more of a challenge here, but I think I can still get Goddard here, and grab him in the swing. I'm actually going to end up grabbing another player here. Looking at the options here, I've got Javonte Williams, Zach Moss, you know, Keon Coleman, who I really like. Maybe I can handcuff Jalen Warren. I'm actually going to end up grabbing Zach Moss here for the Cincinnati Bengals. Even though I am a huge Chase Brown fan, I've talked him up all offseason. I still think he's going to end up being the RB1. I'll take a little bit of risk here, grab Zach Moss. I think he's going to be the value at the beginning. Maybe. He might surprise me. He might end up being the guy. I'm going to grab Jake Ferguson here. Again, just because of the options that Dallas doesn't really have, Ferguson's probably going to see quite a few targets. And again, red zone options. Right now, currently, there's no CeeDee Lamb. You've got Brandon Cooks, right? Then you got the plethora of running backs behind. I know Schoonmaker is somebody that's going to be probably forced into the field because I think because he was drafted in the second round, Dallas is going to put him out there. But Jake Ferguson is definitely being slept on, and I'll put him there every single time. So what I've got here as far as options, I still have kicker and defense to fill out the starting lineup, and then I've got 4 bench players. Now, looking at bench players, I can obviously go backups. I can go like a backup quarterback like Jayden Daniels, who I think really highly of. I could maybe go Jameson Williams, somebody that has been just overlooked, a lot of hype, hasn't proven it, but again, a lot of people are on the hype train. Or I play it safe, grab somebody like Courtland Sutton. You know, I grab Jerome Ford, who's going to be the starting running back for the Browns for the first couple weeks or so. So looking at those options, I think the best option for the way this team is being built, I'm going to grab another receiver in Courtland Sutton because I think Sutton has a lot to prove. I think Sutton could end up being a pretty good receiver. He showed it last year with Russell Wilson. Now he's got Bo Nix. So there's some possibility of him being a top 25, top 30 wide receiver, and I don't need him to be just because he's my 4th option. So I was hoping Jayden Daniels was going to follow me and possibly grab a backup quarterback there. He did not. That's okay. I'm not upset with it, and that's okay. I can possibly grab another quarterback. I'm not a big fan of always grabbing a backup quarterback in most of these drafts, especially when it's just a 1 quarterback league. You can stream them. Being 12 team, again, you don't have to because there's only 12 quarterbacks you're going to have to start. You've got, another 20 players at the quarterback spot that you can kind of, pick up throughout the season. Looking at what I've got here, I'm thinking Jerome Ford's probably the best option here. You can go backup tight end, Freiermuth, Kmet, who I really both, I think absolutely can have a good season. The one concern I do have with Cole Kmet is the fact that right now Everett's been starting to get a little bit more options. But I'm actually going to grab Jerome Ford because, again, he is going to be starting for the Browns at the beginning of the season. I think they're going to use him quite a bit more. I think even with Nick Chubb coming back, I think the fact is they're going to try to keep Chubb healthy all season because I think the Cleveland Browns, and I'm one of the crazy ones that I think the Browns could possibly go to the Super Bowl. Browns are absolutely trying to get there, and I think playing it smart, using Ford and Chubb might be the way for them to do that. So you saw some defense. The first one, 49ers. You saw a couple kickers. Obviously, kickers, I'm not someone who's going to draft super early. I usually typically draft them last. You might be a little different as far as that strategy. I even know people who don't even draft a kicker at all, and that's okay. I'm going to play the risk game here. I'm going to grab Rico Dowdle in case he ends up starting as far as the running back for the Dallas Cowboys. It's a chance. We don't know how it's going to play out. I will go grab a backup quarterback. Again, not something I typically do, but I will grab a backup quarterback just because you never know with Kyler Murray. You got to always have a backup plan. And looking at that, I'm going to grab Kirk Cousins to pair up with Bijan Robinson. Matthew Stafford's a good option as well. Kirk Cousins obviously in a new offense, but I do think he's going to have a pretty good season. So I don't mind him pairing up with Bijan Robinson there. Now I've got to fill out the rest of this team. I'm going to grab my kicker and defense. Now, I'm actually going to go defense a little bit first. I'm going to grab the Dallas Cowboys, even though they did take a hit with Deron Bland. Kind of sucks to see that happen, but I still think this defense is going to be really solid and top 5 for sure. And then grabbing a kicker, looking at what's options available, I'm probably going to end up grabbing Jason Myers for the Seattle Seahawks. I think it's a team that still can get down the field, can get into, again, field goal range and put up a decent amount of points. Obviously not a top tier kicker, but I'll grab him right there. All right, so that is my 4th spot of a 12-team league mock draft. If you guys have any questions or different formats or anything like that, hit me up in the comments down below. I'd love to see what you guys have. A lot of folks are drafting this weekend, next weekend, right before the season starts, so I'd love to get all these videos out for you guys. And, of course, answer any questions you guys do have. If you guys do have questions of who you should draft, maybe some advice, again, hit me up in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button. Watch some of our content we got going on. And I'll check you guys out next time.